This week I am back on the Carnival ride restoration, and I'm going to tackle part of the project that I've been looking forward to. So while doing research on the ride, I was looking through some old brochures, and I noticed a decorative item on the front of all of the cars. Digging into it a little bit further, I discovered that they were probably torpedo hood ornaments. So I'd be willing to bet that when this ride was built, that torpedo hood ornaments were a pretty inexpensive aftermarket accessory. They've become highly collectible now, and the price has skyrocketed. If I want to replicate that part of the ride during this restoration, I'm going to need to find 5 matching hood ornaments, and that's going to blow the budget. I was able to find one hood ornament on eBay though at a price that I was willing to pay, so I smashed that buy it now button. So this is what we received: torpedo hood ornament, chrome plated to fit Ford, Chevy, Plymouth, and Hudson from 1946 to 1947. And in pencil here, there's a little notation that I believe says it was $4.50. And I paid substantially more than that. So this is the hood ornament. It's cast in 3 pieces. Problem is now we need 4 more matching, and that's today's project. I'm going to mold and cast these. We're going to be creating a silicone mold and then casting copies of this in urethane. So I don't expect too many problems here. I've done molding and casting before. Of course, there's always unknowns like temperature and humidity that are tough to control. So the first step of the process is polishing up the original. There's quite a few imperfections in the surface, some blemishes, some corrosion, and all of that needs to be polished out or it'll show up in the copies. Gonna have to sand this down and then fill it with something. So what I'll be doing here is the opposite of what I have here. Instead of a piece with a threaded hole in it, I'm going to have a piece with a stud permanently embedded in it. Now we just need to concentrate on filling that hole, because I just need like the smallest amount of filler possible. I really like these sheets for mixing up filler. You just tear off a new surface. That's probably too much. I'll leave links down below in the video description to all the tools and supplies I used throughout this project. This stuff should kick pretty fast. Got a little bit too aggressive there and pulled it out, but I'm going to let that set up now, and then we'll sand it. Now again, this doesn't have to be a permanent repair. It only has to be good enough to get one mold off of it. Trying to sneak up on it here. Feels pretty good right there. Alright, now I need to find a screw to stick in there to have something to hold it with. Just right. That'll be perfect. It's actually looking really good. As long as I don't screw it up here by getting runs in the paint. This is one of those times when I need to know when to leave it well enough alone and stop putting more paint on it. Going to give this one more quick coat before starting to polish it out. I think that's going to be good. So I got quite a few coats of paint on here, and I'm going to take some sandpaper now and try to polish this up just a little bit. Starting to see a little bit of a shine on here, and that's good. The shinier this gets, the shinier the end result will be. Now I have to make some decisions here about how I'm going to mold this, what orientation I'm going to put this in. Originally, I believe it was probably molded flat like this. I can see some flashing down here, evidence of a parting line. My plan at the moment is to mold it in this orientation. What I'm thinking is, if when I pour this, if I do have any air bubbles in it, they're going to rise up and they're not going to leave any blemishes on this top side. If that causes a problem, well, we'll try something else. Gonna see if we can do just a little bit of polishing here without burning through the paint. I'm just gonna be using this little buff with a cordless drill, so we're not gonna be having super high speeds. Shit, that is exactly what I didn't want to do. That's a shame, because other than that, it looks pretty good. we'll let that dry. Well, it's a new day, and our paint has dried. I'm gonna see if I can polish it without screwing it up again. Oh. Alright, maybe third time will be the charm. Just use the glazing putty on it. We'll see if that sticks. So I am going to use the Krylon Crystal Clear as a top coat. That usually leaves a pretty good surface to mold over. The only thing I don't know is whether the Krylon is going to have any sort of interaction with the Rust-Oleum primer that I used. We're just going to have to wait and see. Okay, we'll let it sit. See if it crazes or does anything that we don't want. Okay, I gotta say I'm pretty happy with the finish we've got on this. I don't know if the camera is picking up that sheen or not, but I think that's going to be a good starting point for making our first mold. So for making the mold, I am going to be using these very generic building blocks. I really like using them because you can make a box that's form-fitting right around the item that you're trying to mold. You don't end up wasting a lot of silicone, and the silicone does no damage to them. When I'm done with this project, the grandkids can still play with these. We need to put down a layer of clay down in the bottom, and we'll be bedding this into it, bringing the clay up to the halfway point. So this is the clay we're going to be using. It's a Chavant product. It is called sulfur-free plastiline. It's a modeling clay. I'm going to be cutting a piece of it off and putting it in the oven. That's going to soften it up, making it easier for us to push down into the bottom of the mold to create that bed that we're looking for. Now, sulfur-free is important. There's basically two different types of silicone, a tin-based and a platinum-based. Both of them can be inhibited by the presence of sulfur. Okay, I think we got this clay soft enough to actually use. So I'm just going to start pushing this down in here. What I do want to do is start refining this, getting the clay off the sides, smoothing this out. I also need to clean the residual clay off of our original here. What I'm going to try to use is a brush with a little bit of isopropyl alcohol. I'm going to do my Bob Ross brush beating technique. He always seemed to enjoy that so much. We're going to build up the side with more Legos. And then we're going to pour in some...
more clay.
Well, we're going to pour in a liquid to make a mold.
Ooh. So where's the liquid?
It's in the other room.
Oh.
Haven't gotten it out yet.
So I know what you did. So you got a bowl, and then you put wrapping paper on it.
Yeah, because that's just a paper bowl. I put this in the oven last night to help soften the clay, to make it easier to work with. And
it actually worked out.
It did. Yeah, you're good with Legos.
Yeah, I built it like a whole toy thing. It was like a chicken. And it goes in like, what is that called? The rooster thing where they sleep?
The hen house or the chicken coop?
The chicken coop, yeah.
Chicken coop?
Yeah, I built that.
Okay.
Can I start putting them on?
Yep.
You can help me.
Yeah, I'm going to.
Legos. We need 3.
There's one.
There we go.
So it's time to get to the mold making, and for that we're going to use the Mold Max 30 by Smooth-On. Now I had called Smooth-On asking for some recommendations over what type of materials to use for making both the mold and the cast, and this was the product that they had recommended to me. And after talking about the project a little bit more, they offered up to donate the product to actually make this. So I'd like to thank them for that, and I say, it's what I would have used anyways, but I'm certainly happy to have them on board. So the Mold Max 30, it is a tin-based silicone, and you mix it by weight, 100 parts of part A to 10 parts of part B. So we're going to have to get our scale out to actually weigh it. Not going to be able to just eyeball it. So stir part A, shake part B thoroughly before dispensing. So I think we're ready to give this a try. I've got everything laid out here that I think I'm going to need. Got the silicone, got our scale, got our vacuum chamber, and the mold itself. So I'll be pouring the part A into this container, and that's going to be just a matter of eyeballing it to figure out exactly how much we think we need to fill this mold. We'll be weighing it, recording that measurement, and then dividing it by 10. That'll tell us how much of the part B we need to mix in. Stir this in. Then after thoroughly stirring that, we'll put it in the vacuum chamber. So we'll put this in here. Now I'm going to have to do what I call riding the throttle on this, because otherwise it's probably going to overflow. This vacuum chamber actually has a vent tube coming out of it that we can close off, and that so it allows some amount of air to escape back into the vacuum chamber, and with that we can actually control exactly how fast the vacuum level rises. So we're going to plug this in. That's what I was talking about, riding the throttle. Just letting some air escape back into the chamber so it doesn't overflow. See, now it's collapsing. Now I can just let it run with full vacuum. Smooth On recommends you run it for a minute after the collapse. Like a lot of the tools in my shop, this vacuum chamber was something I acquired over a long time. This particular one was shop built, but there are a lot of inexpensive options on the market right now, and I'll leave a link down below to at least get you searching in the right direction. Okay, so I've added a little blob of clay here. This is going to make our pour spout. It's going to leave a little void there in the silicone where we'll be able to pour our casting resin in. With the way I'm making this mold, any air bubbles that are left in the silicone are going to want to rise, so they're going to be coming away from the piece that we're casting. Pouring this all from one side, silicone will flow across and hopefully not introduce any extra air bubbles across the face of the piece we're casting. Not sure if we're going to have enough silicone here. We're going to have to add some more. Looks like we're going to pretty much cover the entire piece of the hood ornament, but we're not going to form the spout or the keeper for the screw that I want. We're going to have to mix up a little more. Let's go for 50. If you see any bugs flying around, we have a real problem here with box elders. And now that it's getting cold outside and the inside of the shop here is warm, they're all sneaking in. They're almost as annoying as stink bugs. Alright, so we're a few hours short of the official cure time of this product. You're supposed to leave it sit for 24 hours, and it's only been about 20, but I am going out this evening, and I'm just dying to see what this looks like. So I'm going to start tearing it apart, and hopefully I'm not making a big mistake here. That feels pretty well cured to me. Sounds like our neighbor decided to start his lawnmower. Dude, it's November. We're done mowing for the year. And if some people don't like using Legos because of this weird leakage pattern it leaves on the outside, I kind of think it's cool. I know that annoys some people though. Alright, well, I think we can see here if we can get this to separate from the clay. So far so good. I'm going to unscrew this. We can also pull that out. So see, that's going to make our pouring spout there. There's no undercuts, so it's just stuck. Oh, it does get bigger. I wasn't thinking about that. Yeah, I wasn't thinking about that at all. Well, it's silicone's flexible enough that won't matter. When we go to make one of these, what I'll do is I'll take a bolt that's like this, and I will screw it in here so that the head of the bolt is going to end up roughly in the middle of the casting. And then when the resin gets poured around it, that's going to end up being encapsulated inside of our finished piece. Alright, so we're coming along with our mold. I've got most of the excess silicone picked off the side of this. Our next step is we need to clean this thoroughly. It still has some clay residue on here. We don't obviously want that on there. So we'll clean off the clay, and then we need to build a box to pour the second half of this mold. And then before doing that, we will need to apply a mold release. Otherwise, the silicone we're pouring in could stick to the original silicone and trapping this piece in here forever, and that's obviously not what we want. So I'm going to be using this Ease Release 200 by Man Release Technologies. This is another product distributed by Smooth-On. We'll just be spraying this on our mold and on the part of the hood ornament that's exposed. Brush that around a little bit, make sure that we've got a light coating, but we want it to be a thorough coating. Make sure that our silicone doesn't stick. And we stir. All right, I think that should hold some primer. All right, time to take this apart. Some of them are really stuck.
Because of the liquid. Peel off the caps.
Okay, I'll take this off. But we want to see what's hiding inside of it.
Oh, there's something inside it?
Mm-hmm.
Is it a toy?
It's the piece we were making.
Oh, it is? This was inside it. What? What are we going to do with the rest of it?
Well, so now, what we can do is we can put this back in here like this. And we can pour a liquid in here that hardens up. And when it hardens up, we'll have more of these.
How are we going to do it because it's open?
Well, I'm going to put some rubber bands around it to hold it.
Do you have big rubber bands?
I'm not sure. I'm going to have to find some.
I can help you find them. I'm a really good digger. So it's time to actually try out our mold and cast something in it. We're going to be using the Smooth Cast 66D. It's a urethane resin, and I believe it has a light gray color. And we'll be pouring that in the mold. It's a 1-to-1 ratio by volume, so pretty easy to mix up. And I'm also going to be applying a mold release to the mold. Don't necessarily have to do that. We're casting in silicone, but it will help the mold last longer. So we're going to be going ahead and doing that. So I want that bolt head to end up roughly in the middle of the casting. The only thing I'm a little bit worried about is whether we're going to end up with air trapped in this mold somewhere. Did not really make provisions for risers or anything like that, so we will see. Well, it's not some of my best work, but I didn't have time to change it. Anybody remember these little popsicle sticks? You could build stuff out of them. The other thing they recommend is after pouring this in the mold to put it in a pressure pot. I am not going to do that this time. This time we're just going to pour it in here. Hopefully not make a mess. Yeah, this is what I was scared of. Okay, we've made a big mess. We mixed up way more than we needed, and we're just gonna have to see how it goes. And again, I should be wearing gloves and I'm not. So one more thing I need to do is the base of the hood ornament. Now this guy here, with the way it's configured, it's clearly designed to go on top of some sort of molding on the hood of the car, and we're not going to have that. So rather than modify this, what I'm going to do is hop on the computer, take some dimensions off of this and design a new piece that I can 3D print, and then we'll make copies of that piece. Alright, here's what I really want to see. How this came out. Yeah, that air bubble matters, and that air bubble matters. This here needs to be trimmed. That was from our pouring spout. This is going to be another two-part mold. I'm going to mold this like this. Now on this one, I want to block this all in. Alright, I'm just going to be refining the parting line here, smoothing this out. I need to work this area here too. I really like this tool for smoothing things. It's got kind of a rubber tip on it. I'm just trying to get some of the residual clay off of the piece here. I'm going to pour this into a bigger container. It's coming up. There we go. Once it cools down, it should pop off there. That looks really good. So one small mistake I made here, or at least it's something I could have done better. I can't really say it's a mistake because I'm really pleased with the way this came out. But since I used the Legos, one of the things I could have done was to indent these corners, and that would have helped save material. There it goes. I think we got enough in there. Alright, our paint here has dried. Alright, let's let that dry. Okay, leave it well enough alone. Stop putting paint on it. So I'm going to be using the Krylon Crystal Clear again to top coat this to give it a smooth finish. And the nice thing about the Crystal Clear is its turnaround time. This dries to the touch in like 10 to 15 minutes, but it's usable after an hour, so you can really move the project along. Well, I do believe that we are safe to try to demold this.
Okay, one last mold to make, and this is a quick one because we only have to do it from one side. We don't need to make a two-sided mold this time. So going to make a box for it to outline it, and then put a little clay bed in the bottom so that we have we want to seal this to the bottom. Then we'll pour the silicone over top of it, and be good to go. So it's about time to try to pull a casting from our ring mold. Of course, we're trying to make this piece now, and with the way this is oriented in the mold, it's cast like this. My plan is to tilt the mold slightly as I pour the resin in. Our fill spout is right here. That causes the resin to enter right here at the tip, and with a slight angle, my hope is that the resin will flow down in, filling it here and pooling at the bottom, and slowly working up, causing any air to move up with it as well, so it doesn't get trapped inside the mold and cause air bubbles that we wouldn't want. I need to pour this in really slowly so as to avoid clogging our funnel. Just using electrical tape to hold the mold together, and maybe all it takes. I'm gonna roll this around a little bit to try to encourage any air that might be trapped to come up to that top. While we're here, it's probably safe to unmold this. And let's just go ahead and use this extra resin while we're at it. That may be the fastest demolding and casting I've ever done. So I think we've given this enough time to set up. A good way of knowing this is by the leftover material in the mixing cup. Once that's set up, you pretty well know that it's all set up. We'll go with the base first because it's an easy pull. Yeah, it looks nice. It is still a little bit tacky though. So I'm going to let the other one go. I don't want to end up with fingerprints on it. Time to pull our ring out and see how we did. Trying to avoid fingering it all up. Just peel the flashing off. I don't see any air bubbles, which was my big concern, so I think we had a good finish here. I'm super happy with that. So I've been casting quite a few of these pieces, and I'm pretty happy with the results. I've just been experimenting with the different molds, trying to see how the mold has to be handled to get the best finish possible. Now, the next time we revisit this project, what I want to start working on is the finish. See what it's going to take to get the best metallic finish on these possible. And I have a few different ideas I want to try out. In the meantime, if you want to see more of this restoration project, I got a whole playlist. Click that link to the left and come along for the ride.